What are Hamilton and Leclerc's statements before the first race of the season in Melbourne, Australia? In today's video, we go to see the situation at Ferrari's house. Let's do a specific analysis on how the updates will affect this atypical season, because next year there will be a very important regulatory change. In addition, we see Toto Wolff's statements about Ferrari and Kimi Antonelli. We must also discuss Stefano Domenicali's renewal as Formula 1 Chief Executive Officer. Before we start, please leave a supportive like, and now let's see everything in detail. This is the most exciting time of my life. I'm having fun and I can't wait to get in the car tomorrow. This is what Lewis Hamilton stated before his first seasonal Grand Prix with Ferrari in Melbourne. The seven-time world champion faced the opening press conference with the smile of someone who is enjoying every moment of this new adventure. The anticipation is very high, and all of us fans, but also the insiders, are curious to see how the teams will position themselves after the preseason tests. Seasonal? However, Lewis Hamilton himself maintains a cautious approach, aware that the true hierarchy of 2025 will only be outlined after a few races, and Hamilton reiterated, "It's all new, I'm still learning," and we also need to make a small note because at 40 years old, Hamilton finds himself in a completely different environment after a career entirely linked to Mercedes engines since the McLaren days. In fact, he stated when you enter a new team, you have to adapt as quickly as possible, but a transition period is inevitable. In these 2 months, we have built a solid foundation, and according to Hamilton, the key will be to establish a strong relationship with the Ferrari team. But it's a process that requires time and trust. In fact, he said respect is immediate, but trust needs to be built. It's not something you get just by walking through the door. But a very important phrase that Lewis Hamilton said before this race in Australia is this: "I don't have to prove anything to anyone. The pressure for me is only what I put on myself." In fact, Lewis Hamilton will focus much more on himself this season than on comparing with his opponents. The real battle is internal. It's inside Lewis that he will try to extract the maximum from his potential that he knows he has. As a 7-time world champion, he has nothing to prove except to himself. And about the new Ferrari, he said, "It's different from anything I've driven. It's the first car I drive without the Mercedes engine." Different vibrations, different feelings, even the team's way of working is another world. Hamilton is excited yet challenged as he focuses on his goal for the season's first race in Melbourne. Obviously, the top 10 is certain, but precisely to the top 5. In fact, Hamilton keeps his feet on the ground and has said, "I know what I can give to the team. I know what it takes to get to the top. For now, my goal is to find a good rhythm. Obviously, I want to win and bring Ferrari to the front, but first of all, I want to improve compared to the last seasons. The goal is to finish comfortably in the top 10. Last year's result wasn't great, and I don't recall the exact placing. I just want to know that I've given everything and feel good in the car. Then we'll see if we can fight for the top 5. Hamilton added that Leclerc is a nice guy who works hard above all. People don't see what happens behind the scenes, but Charles is a hard worker. He has his method to be competitive, and I respect him a lot. On the subject of pressure, I totally agree with Hamilton. He competes with himself. After winning a title with McLaren and 6 with Mercedes, Hamilton has nothing more to prove at this point in his career. The goal is to do the best with himself, try not to have regrets later, but it's normal that at that age he isolates himself a bit from the world of Formula 1. Now he finds himself a bit like Alonso, a bit outside the whole circus environment. As veteran drivers, they know what to do and don't feel like they are being put out. Comparison with other drivers. However, on the subject of objectives, in my opinion, Hamilton has remained very bland. 10 top 5 seem to me very achievable goals for Ferrari, especially for this first race of the season. Hamilton has kept his feet on the ground to try not to create too high expectations for the fans and also for the press, then impress on the track. It's what he's always done in his career, since his debut. I remember my debut here in 2007 with McLaren. It was an epic feeling. I made my debut with Mercedes here before, but this time it's different. It feels more like 2007. Over the years, I've always had my eye on the red box, and now here I am. It's a beautiful feeling. A very important statement is the following: "I just want to finish the weekend knowing I gave it my all and felt comfortable in the car. Only tomorrow will we understand our true potential compared to the other top teams. I live in my bubble. I spend 4 days a week in Maranello to prepare myself as best I can, both physically and mentally." If Hamilton has focused on the results achieved in his career, on mental preparation and the pressure he puts on himself, Leclerc has been more concrete, talking more about the potential of the car. In fact, the Monegasque has analyzed the work done in the tests and aims to maximize the performance of the Ferrari from the very first race weekend. At Ferrari, there is no driver more important than the others. The team is bigger than any single driver. This team has always been special in this way. We know there is potential to unlock on the Ferrari SF25, but honestly, we have not had any balance issues. We tried several different configurations to understand the best direction to take, both for this race and for the entire season. I believe we've done well, but have not optimized the car. Honestly, no other team has done it either. Saturday will reveal our standing compared to others. Finding the right balance is the simplest part today. The real work is choosing the right philosophy to make the most of the car. That's why we tried so many different solutions in the tests. During a GP, you can't afford to overhaul the setup in FP1 or FP2 because you would risk compromising the feeling with the car. That's why we did it in the tests. Now we will focus on the setup. Lastly, we've made significant progress on the simulator's balance and will carry on with this work during tomorrow's free trials. Leclerc has been much more concrete in his statements about the work done by Ferrari. He's the longest-serving Maranello driver, and in my opinion, he's much more focused on starting at his best. This season, trying to optimize the work done both in the simulator and in the tests, which, as I told you, was a particular job and perhaps even different from the other teams Ferrari has experimented with completely different setups. To see what the limit of the car is, and to see what the right direction to take is for the rest of the season, this also justifies the high-performance training on different testing days. But can Albert Park be the right opportunity for Ferrari to challenge McLaren? If the main problem faced by the SF25 in the tests was precisely the balance with critical situations between entry and center curve, especially when the car was fuel loaded, however, the Australian circuit offers less intense braking compared to Bahrain, for example, in curve, while 3 the speed drops from 280 to 62 miles per hour, while in curve 11 it goes from 180 miles per hour to about 74.564 miles per hour during the race, but the track is known for its medium and high speed curves in the first 2 sectors and for the winding sections in the 3rd sector. In particular, the reliability of the front will be crucial to tackle curves like 1, 6 and the fast chicane of 9-10. The McLaren with the MCL38 last year had highlighted some problems due to the low grip of the asphalt. Now, it will be interesting to see if the new MCL39 can overcome these issues, as Norris has already identified. And be aware that temperatures and weather conditions will be a decisive factor. High temperatures are expected on Saturday with peaks above 30 degrees, while for Friday and especially Sunday, more humid temperatures are expected around 25 degrees. And the possibility of morning rains is not excluded, or in the second half of the day. If we want, one of the critical points for the SF25 is the management of mechanical balance, fundamental for low-speed curves, where the previous SF24 had made the difference by winning one of the 5 seasonal races in the 2024 Australian GP. So the goal for Ferrari will be to find a setup that ensures excellent interaction between the 2 axes, which allows them to be competitive in the slower sections of the 1st and 3rd sector. In recent days, the team has stepped up activities on the simulator, trying to fill the gaps found during testing. While on one hand, the gap to McLaren seemed wide, on the other, the switch from Sakir to Albert Park could play in favor of the team. Pirelli will select the C3, C4 and C5 tires for this year, the same as last year, without the new C6 compound. There is an average speed higher by about 18.64 miles per hour compared to Sakir in Albert Park, and therefore it will be important to manage the energy on the tires, especially on the lateral axis, which becomes crucial. So Ferrari needs to try to give everything on Friday to prepare the best setup for Sunday. It will be important to understand the weather conditions to develop a setup that works on Sunday and not just on Friday or Saturday. And we will see if the work done on the simulator these days will bear fruit then also on the track with a balanced setup. But be careful, in the 2025 season, there is zero margin for error. In fact, we need to delve into the issue of updates that are at risk. With the budget cap set at $135 million, any incident could compromise the development of the single-seater. The teams will have to manage resources with surgical precision. One of the most costly aspects for the stables is the cost of personnel, which has led to the birth of complex corporate structures. Red Bull manages multiple entities, including Red Bull Racing, Red Bull Advanced Technology, and Red Bull Powertrains, under one umbrella. A strategy that allows costs to be distributed, preventing them from falling entirely on the Formula One program. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile closely monitors team spending, but the lack of a real dispute authority complicates the task of enforcing the rules. Many teams have indeed expanded their activities into other disciplines, as demonstrated by collaborations between Formula One stables and the America's Cup sailing teams. Although the federation's intent is to ensure fairness, the current control structure is often insufficient to counter accounting strategies designed to circumvent the imposed limits. In 2024, accidents significantly impacted the stable's budgets. Consider, for example, Williams, which spent about $12 million to repair the crashed cars of Logan Sargent, Alex Albon, and Franco Colapinto. Almost 10% of the total budget available. Perez was the driver with the highest bill, with almost $5 million in damages accumulated on his Red Bull. And with the 2026 technical regulations on the horizon, the 2025 season will be a crucial transition phase in which every team will have to manage expenses very carefully to avoid compromising the development plan of the single-seaters. And beware, if the behavior on the track does not reflect the simulations, the teams must choose whether to modify the development philosophy or correct the errors with additional investments. For example, last year Ferrari paid dearly for a strategic error. The update package introduced in Spain did not work, causing a slowdown in the development of the SF24, a luxury that with the current budget cap no team will be able to afford in 2025. Any extra expense for repairs or failed tests could compromise the entire development plan even for 2026. Another factor influencing the season is driver experience. Only Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Williams will have two drivers with at least one full F1 season. Red Bull pairs Verstappen with Liam Lawson, 11 GPs, while Mercedes debuts Kimi Antonelli. In 2025, mistakes will be costly, and with 2026 regulations looming, the battle extends beyond the track. Be cautious from the first Grand Prix, as it also affects the stable's balance sheets. The team that brings home the most points, maintains consistency, and whose drivers make the fewest mistakes will have the best chance of success. Minimizing accidents allows the team to allocate more of their budget cap to investments and development rather than repairs. But we also need to talk about the development of Mercedes and see if it's up to par with the other teams. Toto Wolff has commented on Mercedes' performance in Australia and added, "It's hard to say what would make our weekend positive. I'm naturally pessimistic. I see the glass as half empty. If we could fight for the podium, it would be a great success. But right now, we don't exactly know where we stand." Russell is the focal point of the Mercedes project, becoming their lead driver over Hamilton. Toto Wolff emphasized that George's talent is often overlooked when discussing Verstappen, Hamilton, or even Antonelli. And this is
true, however.
It's also true that Kimi is growing a lot within Mercedes. And Toto Wolff himself reiterated that Antonelli is already as fast as Russell, but 2025 will be a year of growth. We knew we were betting on a young driver with enormous potential. His goal is to grow, learn, and become familiar with the circuits for the new 2026 era. And Toto Wolff also said, when Ron Dennis decided to promote Lewis, he said that even a second off, Alonso would not be a tragedy. Probably Fernando thought it would be a walk in the park, but then everything changed. And we remember the famous 2007 season at McLaren with Alonso and Hamilton. Toto Wolff also added, "I certainly won't tell George that we expect him to put Kimi behind all the time. We wouldn't have promoted Antonelli to Formula One if we had thought of something like that." And Toto Wolff reiterated that in terms of speed, Kimi will already be there with George, but there are other aspects that he will have to learn starting from tire management, which in Formula One is crucial. Antonelli, 18, is an emerging talent, while Russell, 27, is an experienced driver and now the lead at Mercedes. Toto Wolff is aware of Antonelli's potential but wants to avoid putting pressure on him. He trusts his talent, focusing on 2026 rather than this year. For Antonelli, 2025 will be a year of growth. And be careful, because even Helmut Marko has gone out on a limb about Kimi Antonelli and said he has impressive speed. He is a first-class talent.
And the
Red Bull's consultant sees in the young Italian an extraordinary talent, superior to the other rookies on the grid, but direct entry into a top team obviously brings with it enormous pressure. And he went out on a limb saying he is clearly a top-tier driver, he has impressive speed, but Helmut Marko, who always tries to put other teams in a bad light, stated he is under immense pressure. He has already covered about 10, assume 0 miles, but he also had 2 major accidents. He is pure talent, but joining a team like Mercedes right away will be a big challenge for him. The Red Bull consultant then compared Wolff's move to what his own team did with Max Verstappen in 2015, promoting him directly from Formula 3 to Toro Rosso. Toto Wolff wants to replicate Verstappen's story with Mercedes, but it's a difficult path. However, in terms of talent, Antonelli is certainly a top-level driver. According to Helmut Marko, in the comparison between Bortoleto, Berman and Antonelli, the Italian driver comes out on top. In fact, according to Marko, Gabriel Bortoleto is a second-tier driver. He is very smart and solid, but I don't see in him the pure speed of Antonelli. While about Berman, he said he is very fast, but he had many accidents in Formula 2 and Formula 3 because he takes big risks. He always operates at the limit. About Ajara, he said that he lost the F2 title by a few points, but he lost at least 80 points due to technical failures. He called Jack Doohan a third-tier driver and doubts he will finish the season. This is what he said, even Marko, about Jack Doohan, opening the possibility that Doohan will be replaced with Colapinto in Alpine. Since we're discussing Red Bull, I also want to address the flexible wings issue. A brief aside. Many of you have told me, damn, Red Bull claims McLaren and Ferrari's flexible wing and therefore the regularity of its own components when Red Bull itself has exceeded the budget cap. So Red Bull should just keep quiet, but Red Bull, by making this claim, is it fighting for the title or not? There are two factions expressing their views on this. Some say that it raises this doubt about the flexible wing precisely because you don't have the tools to catch up with Ferrari and McLaren. Others say that if Red Bull were really in a technical crisis, they would hardly worry about challenging others' developments. This is a topic I also want to discuss with you. After the spark of Imola 2024, where the RB20 seemed far from the best, then on Saturday Verstappen won the pole position and on Sunday he won the race. We saw a very crisis-ridden season last year for Red Bull, except maybe for the Qatar GP, where Verstappen put out a good performance. Certainly Verstappen is Red Bull's extra weapon because he is currently the best driver on the grid. He has won 4 world titles recently. However, Red Bull is facing technical struggles. Max put it himself. So these complaints that Red Bull makes to the other teams, they serve to bring the other teams back to the same level as Red Bull itself. This is clear. If Red Bull were currently dominating in Formula 1 as they did early last year, it wouldn't be complaining about Ferrari and McLaren's flexible wings. Also focus on handling the bumps in Melbourne, as the RB21 will certainly be affected by them. The very last topic we need to discuss is the renewal of Stefano Domenicali as Chief Executive Officer of Formula 1. In fact, the current president and chief executive officer of Formula 1 extends his term for another 5 years. And so Stefano Domenicali will remain in Formula 1 until 2029. We remember Domenicali took on the role of chief executive officer on January 1st, 2021 at a very complex time for the sport and for the financial resources of Formula 1, marked by the effects of the pandemic, and in these 5 years of management, he has helped to transform Formula 1, which has become a global platform. Formula 1 is growing significantly. There are more races on the calendar, an increase in sponsorships, an increase in the value of media rights, and greater fan engagement worldwide. And it's very important to have an Italian in charge of Formula 1, because it allows European racetracks to remain on the calendar. We know that Domenicali worked at Ferrari from 1991 to 2014, becoming team principal in 2008. He then worked at Audi Lamborghini from 2014 to 2020, becoming chief executive officer of Lamborghini. And he still works in Formula 1, doing a great job. Let me know in the comments your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. As always, I remind you to leave a like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos on the channel. Every day we cover all the news about Formula 1 and specifically about Ferrari. Check out the related videos from Rastro. See you next time.